Welcome to the Sports Show. I'd like to thank you. I'm your host, David Newman, and we got a great show for you today. We got the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide coming on, Nick Saban, national championship in 2009, just to talk with the BCS and the playoff system. Today we got a full show for you about the BCS and what's going on right now, so let's jump into it right away. First off, the BCS system is obviously the best system for college football. It's 100% fail-proof. The way they use the AP poll, the coaches poll, and the 6 computers that do God knows what is the best way to figure out the championship for college football. I mean, how else would you do it? Actually have the teams play on the field? That'd be ridiculous. This system is so fail-proof and so proven to work that my son's 7th grade football league is even taking the BCS to their home. My son, or the Lancers teams you can see right here, they have a 6-2 record, but in the polls, they're actually ranked first over the undefeated Panthers. The reason? Obviously, they have better players, better recruits, they make more money, and more fans come to their games. So that's why they're #1 in the polls. It's obviously pretty fair, even though it might not seem fair. It's fair for this league. Looks like we have an exclusive pick from the executive office in the BCS. Let's check it out, and we'll send it back here after the clip's done. Wow, that's really how they pick the teams with the magic 8 ball? That's got to be a joke, right? Well, there might be some more truth to that than you think. So coming up later in the show, we got Nick Saban to talk a little bit more about the BCS and what we can really do to change the system. Timberwolves season tickets 2011 on sale now. Thank you again for tuning into our show and coming back after the commercials. I'm here with Coach Nick Saban of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick, thanks for joining. We appreciate it. Former coach for Michigan State, LSU, Miami Dolphins, and then just recently won a national championship with the Tide. So thanks for joining us, Nick. We really appreciate it. Obviously, every November and December, the BCS Bowl system and the playoff in college football is something that is very important here. So what is your idea on the BCS system? Does it work? Does it not? What do you think?
I'm a big fan of the BCS system. I think there are some issues with it, but it's the best alternative. I think it's better than a playoff system would be, and it's real good for college football.
Okay, so I mean, just from that comment, I can see definitely being the head coach, you're for the system. But, I mean, wouldn't you want to see a small school like Texas Christian or one of these undefeated schools get into the national championship game, or no? Are they not worthy of the championship game?
You know, I think it's a tough argument, but in the end, the best schools end up making the national championship because they play the toughest schedules.
I agree with you there, Nick. I mean, it doesn't make sense to put one of these small schools in with no fans, no one attending the game. There's just not enough money in college football, so I agree with you there. What about the idea where everyone's arguing you need to play for it on the field? You know, having a playoff system, you play on the field to win the championship. What's your idea on that?
You know, I understand that argument, but I feel like every game is like a playoff game in college football, and if you lose a game, you're not in contention for a national title. If you lose a game early on, every game counts.
Wow, I mean, I never thought of that, Coach Saban. I mean, the thought of every game pretty much is like a playoff game. You don't want to plateau in college football nowadays. You want to be the best from day one to the start. I mean, that's nothing like, you know, like the hockey teams where you want to grow, so I agree with you there.
Yeah.
What about the idea of college football being completely special? I mean, even D1, the AA, D2, D3, they all have the playoff system. Why is Division I so special in college football?
You know, it's a tough that's a tough thing to argue. But we have the biggest conferences, and we have the biggest schools, and
you also have the most players. I mean, academics is obviously something very important that all these big schools stress, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you definitely, I feel like in a playoff system, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in a playoff system, you could take up more time. Playoff system, take away from the academics, right, Nick?
Right during finals time, yeah.
Definitely, I agree with you. And last question here, and then we'll get you off the show. Do you feel like it's an advantage of being in a big school? You've always coached for Michigan State, LSU, Alabama. Those are all big conference schools. Do you feel like you're always like held up to an advantage? Because if you lose one game or go undefeated, you're automatically in the championship game. But if you're a small school, you almost have to prove yourself. What's your idea with that?
I think there is an advantage, but to an extent, you have to play a really tough schedule against some tough teams, and those smaller conference schools like Boise or TCU don't have to do that. So it's really, it's tough to argue that point.
Definitely, Nick. I mean, you can see you guys play a tougher schedule. You guys deserve it more, so I agree with you there. Coach Saban here, National Championship 2009 Alabama Crimson Tide. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks a lot, David.
Appreciate it. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Thanks again for tuning into the Sports Show featuring David Newman. Next week we got another great guest, so tune on in.